Hi, I'm Larry Kortkamp, and this is Biz Pointz TV, the show that introduces you to new and trending business topics, smart technologies, and the people that are making an impact on our local business communities. We have a great show for you today. We'll be back in just a minute to get it started.
Create a stronger and more dynamic business. Larry Kortkamp, founding partner at the Kortkamp Group, talks with industry insiders about trending topics moving the needle for local business today. Here's your host, Larry Kortkamp.
The business of building sustainable and affordable housing is the topic of our discussion today, and our guest is uniquely qualified to talk about it. His name is Chris Lynes. He's the managing partner of Therma-Star Sustainable Homes. Chris, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this new technology that is brand new to North Texas.
It's not only new, but it's important. I mean, this is a topic of discussion nationwide, really, not just here, obviously, is home construction. There's a tremendous need for building new homes, but building new homes in a sustainable, green, environmental way is also of huge importance to us.
Actually, that's true, but the cost of homes, especially in Dallas, last week they had a news thing where some guy got 39 offers on his house in 2 days because there's such a shortage of houses. So what we want to do is not only come up with sustainable and green homes, but make them affordable in the $250,000 range, give or take $25,000. That's our focus. Now, we'll do other things, but that's our focus.
And you actually have a unique construction methodology in order to reach that goal, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, we do.
And tell us a little bit about the method.
Okay, first off, it's not a new technology. It's been around since the 1970s. It's just never been used much in the United States. You want me to give a quick description?
Sure.
Okay, it's basically made out of concrete and foam, which sounds terrible, but when you look at the homes, they're beautiful, and you can see some of that later on in the show. But these things are just unbelievable. They last 100 years. They do not burn. They do a lot of things that your regular house doesn't do. Last week we talked about toxicity. There is none in this house. It just isn't, because concrete and foam are toxic.
So many of our audience members might be familiar with an engineered panel, a SEP construction, something that's pre-constructed, right? And they bring the panels onto the building site and they lower them in. This is not the same, but it's a similar technology where you use a central panel that is a foam, and it's not just any foam. What is the foam that you're using in this centralized panel?
It's expanded polystyrene.
Why is that important?
Because styrofoam, if you heat it for any reason, it puts off toxic fumes. It'll kill everybody in the house. You probably don't want to use that.
Okay, just a small point. So we take our centralized panel of foam, and then you're actually creating a sandwich. You're layering that with a steel mesh.
It's a steel mesh
on the outside.
It looks a little bit like chicken wire
to give it some structural integrity, right? And then on top of that, you're actually applying a coat of a shotcrete, a sprayed concrete mixture.
Absolutely, special. It's not just regular cement you can buy at Home Depot, but it's really interesting because when you have the panels with the frame around it, you build the entire house out of that. Roof, floor, all the walls, and when you're done doing that, then you spray the entire house inside and outside with this shotcrete.
So are you designing the house on site, or is this something that has to be pre-designed at another location?
I'm glad you asked that. We actually take the design, we have an architect do the design, because you got to do that anyway, and we send that off to our supplier called Instruct out of Utah. And they will actually create a set of panels that are put together like a puzzle when you get there, and the house with all the windows and doors are already cut out, ready to go.
Very interesting.
Interestingly enough, once you've got panels on site, you've got the foundation done, you can be out of the weather in just maybe a week, because you put the panels up, and the minute you spray it, you're out of the weather.
So in essence, and I was telling this to someone else, this is almost like an upside down swimming pool. We're familiar with pool technology, right? And we see a lot of pool shows on TV, and they dig the hole, they lay in the wire mesh, and then they spray the gunite or shotcrete or whatever it is on top of that, and then they trowel it out. And I imagine you have to finish the surfaces as well in some manner? Do you scrape them or trowel them after you've sprayed?
You do all of that, but you can do all kinds of things on the facade. You can make it. You can put little things that look like brick, so you can't tell it from whether it's a brick house.
Is it like a stamp or something on there? Yeah,
that's part of it.
Interesting.
But there's little things about that thick, about a 1/4 inch thick, that look like bricks, and you put it on there, and then you color that, and it looks just like brick. Or you can make stucco, or you can make it look like stone, or any kind of thing that you can create from concrete, you know.
Now we're unfamiliar, as a state, Texas is probably not as familiar with many parts of the country with stucco. Being a Southern California kid when I was growing up, that stucco is a hugely utilized product out there in a lot of the homes, and it has a particular look that goes with it. And this style of home construction actually gives me that type of a feel. It looks almost like a stucco, but the material that you're spraying on the outside, is it the same as what you're spraying on the inside? Is it the same mix, or is it a different mix?
It's exactly the same. It's only after the fact you go back with a colored concrete thing to make it look like brick or stucco or stone, whatever it is you want to make. You can make it any color you want to make it.
So you're not using any wood in the construction, right?
There's not a single piece of wood in the construction of this house. The only wood you will ever have in this house are your furniture pieces and that kind of thing, and maybe cabinets for the kitchen or something like that. But think about that.
Yeah, think about it. My termites aren't going to have much to eat, are they?
Sorry, your pets aren't going to get any kind of
But on a
food.
serious note, there's a lot of additional benefits that come with this type of construction, not just from the environmental, but also on a safety measure as well, correct?
Absolutely, because, you know, no wood, it's all concrete. Nothing to burn, right?
That's right. Is it cooler? Does it
It's
keep the
cooler.
house cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter?
It is so energy efficient that you only use about 25% of the energy you'd use in an equivalent wood house. Think about that, which makes it ideal for solar on the roof.
So all the plumbing, all the electrical, everything is done, it's designed off-site and then actually put into the site-built house. One of my concerns in the past, because like you say, this technology is not, or the concept really of doing it, the technology is new possibly, but the concept is older, is cost. And you actually have found a way to make this not only all these benefits available, but you've also made it affordable.
It costs the same or less than a stick-built house 2 years ago. Right now, it's way cheaper than a wood house because wood has tripled. The cost of a house has gone up $40,000 or $50,000 simply because of the cost of wood. We don't have any of that issue at all.
Are there any local issues that you've run into that prevent you from building this type of a house?
This technology has been approved by every city, every state in the union because there's something called ICC, International Construction Code, that has been around. Like I said, the technology's been around since the 70s. So most cities have seen this in one way or another. And so it satisfies any code anywhere in certainly our country. But this is a hugely used technology in South America and in Asia and Africa. It just hasn't been used here. And you know why it hasn't been used here?
I'm sure you're going to tell us.
Because I went to some builders and said, you know, this is a technology you guys ought to really use because of all these benefits. And you know what they said? I've been building houses all my life out of wood. My pappy did the same thing, and I don't even want to talk to you. That is the slowest industry on the earth to make a change.
It is at that. Parts of the construction industry obviously have been around since time began, and you're exactly correct. There's a lot of that occurred because of construction regulations, and things change as regulations change, but a lot of it is just, as you said, I've always done it that way. That's the way we're going to continue to do it. It's easy for them to manage. It's easy for them to tap into their particular software, or their crews know it. Anytime you make those types of a change on a big scale, you have a lot of issues that go with it. So bigger builders are less likely to do it unless they do it in a grand way. But smaller companies like Thermostar, you're the guys that we look to for innovation in this kind of thing. So.
That's right. Most innovation throughout history has come from a smaller company chasing the big guys.
Chris, I'd like to talk a little bit more about how you got involved in this industry. I know you haven't been doing this your whole life, and it is an interesting story, and we'll do that when we come back from this short break. Word from our sponsors.
My American dream is to help you stay healthy and energized so you can live your American dream.
Our American dream is equipping future generations of American dreamers.
My American dream is to protect my community so they can live their American dream.
My American dream is to bring you some spice and flavor to your life.
Our American dream is ensuring what's most valuable to you.
Our American dream is creating opportunities for healthcare providers so they can have their American dreams.
My American dream is serving our business community and advocating for all of your American dreams.
And we're back. We're talking today with Chris Lynes of Thermostar Sustainable Homes. Chris, before we left, we were going to talk about you a little bit, how you got into this business and why it attracted you.
Well, let me give you kind of the story. I'm an electrical engineer by education, and for many, many years, I sold computer parts. I won't go into what a computer part is. It's semiconductors, things that most people don't understand, but computer chips. But when you get a certain amount of this gray hair on top of my head, they don't want you in electronics anymore. So anyway, when I was 50 years old, I kind of had to get out of this business. And my wife's a real estate attorney, so I said, oh, what the hell, I'll become a mortgage broker. So for the next 8 years, I did become a mortgage broker. And during that time, my niche was single-family investor homes. And so I belonged to all the real estate clubs and I was fairly successful at doing that. But if you remember, 2008 came around and everything went to hell in a handbasket. But during that time, we actually were working with the city of Greenville, Texas, to build some affordable homes. And I was introduced to a technology called SIPs, which is structural insulated panels. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but think about a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and on each side of that you put a little hardy plank or concrete covering on it to make it like a sandwich, and then you can build houses out of that. And those are they have a lot of the advantages of what we're talking about today. And so anyway, that all went to hell in 2008 as well. So I said, okay, now what am I going to do? And for whatever reason, I had some friends that were in the insurance business, and so I became an insurance agent. I did life, health, Medicare, because I was approaching that age. In 2008, I turned 65, so I'm 78 years old right now, and here I am starting a brand new business. But after about 15 years or so in the insurance business, I was sick of it. And I happened to, and because I was in insurance, I did a lot of networking. You know, going to a lot of network because that's where you sell insurance. But one time I went to this brand new group called Schemers. And they only met the one time, but 7 of the people, out of 8 people who showed up, were somehow in real estate. And I said, I wonder if we ought to get back into the SIPs. Maybe we could do something with that now. The technology's gone 10, 15 years later. So I got to thinking about that, and then, but I decided absolutely not go to any builders for the reasons I mentioned earlier, that we would become the builder. And then another network buddy came to me and he said, you know, there's this guy down in Austin that's got this other kind of technology that you might want to take a look at. And it's called SCIP, Structural Concrete Insulated Panel, which is the technology we use today. It is so much better and quicker and cheaper. And it's a lot more flexible. So anyway, we decided to go ahead with that. And I was at a network group one day and guys mentioned something about getting together to talk about real estate. So we had property managers, we had some plumbers and some electrical guys. We started meeting on our own as a little network group on Friday mornings in Plano. And we started talking about what we would do with these SIPs and SCIPs for affordable homes. I didn't want to build $1 million houses and compete with Pulte and those guys. And everybody seemed pretty excited about it. And one Friday I showed up, nobody showed up. I was the only one there. I said, well, I guess that's the end of that idea. And I was walking out of the restaurant, and here comes a guy named Bennett Fraser and his Chinese girlfriend into the meeting. Turns out he's habitually late. That's my partner. But we went back in and had lunch, and we decided right then and there to go ahead and form a company, which is Thermostar, Sustainable Homes as we know it today.
Well, I'm glad you did, and I'm glad you didn't go with the SIP technology, because that technology utilizes wood, and part of what the attractiveness of yours is we eliminate that wood component from what you do. And I'm also glad you're doing it at your age. Well, you know, on my show, Biz Pointz, we are here to really applaud small business. And small business is made up of a lot of the older generation, myself included. So we always like to see small businesses starting no matter what the age group that they're going on. In your particular business with your construction, I know you've actually got some projects going south of Dallas, Lake Travis, down around the Austin area?
Lago Vista is the name of the city.
Are those single-family homes?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. How did that one get started down there?
Oh, that's a much longer story.
Let's make it shorter.
I know. We were going to do a really big project down there on Lake Travis. It fell through.
Yeah.
But because we had talked to some people down there in the city, the word got out. And all of a sudden, we've got 10 contracts to build houses down there. Now, these are not affordable homes. These are in the $500 to $1 million homes. But, you know, when somebody walks in and says, I want to buy one, here's money, what do? So we're going to use the proceeds from that to, of course, do more affordable stuff up here.
So one thing we didn't touch on, we did a little bit, we talked on the benefits in our first segment that we did, but there's some that we haven't talked on too much. And some of that is inherent to the material that you use, the concrete, and how strong it is. One thing that we deal with in Texas, really in the South, is hail. We do a lot of hail damage, and this particular construction you use, even the roofs are made of this concrete material. So we have almost virtually eliminated our hail damage problem with our roofs.
Not only have you eliminated the hail issue, you've eliminated the tornado issue. EF5 tornado is 200 miles an hour. This stuff's protected to 225 miles per hour. Can you think about how valuable that would have been in some of these tornado situations we've had over the last 15, 20 years here in Dallas?
Yes, it would make a big difference. And we've also gone through recently a rather dramatic temperature event that we had here in Texas. We're not used to 0 and 1 degrees, but the house that you're building is actually a foam constructed house. It's incredibly well insulated. So not only does it help in those extreme situations, but here, even on a regular basis, our costs to either heat or cool our homes would be substantially less using this type of construction.
Now that adds solar to it, because it doesn't take much solar to run this. You might have been able to get through that without any problems at all, or certainly a lot less.
Very true. And because of the surface being as flat as it is, it actually makes a solar installation a lot more compatible.
Right. If you look at the technology, and you can see that on some of the diagrams, it'll be here. The roofs are basically flat or angled in such a way that you can't see them. So you can put the panels on the roof and it doesn't turn out to be ugly like a lot of the panels do on a traditional house.
And I don't want people to get the wrong idea. It's not that it's always a flat roof, it just uses a flat technology. Yeah. So many of your plans incorporate the same type of construction, elevated levels that we're used to seeing. It's just used in a different manner than we had before. I know we talked a little bit about regulations, restrictions. Are there any dramatic restrictions that prevent you from building homes in a particular area that you're familiar with?
Fortunately, because as I mentioned earlier, this is a really technology that was developed during the 70s. And there's an international code council that is a worldwide deliverance, if you will, of certain codes that you can use. And they satisfy all that, and they've done a lot of the testing. And most cities will accept that as code compliant. So we don't really have any code issues with almost any city in this country.
Very good. And finally, I think the most, at least the most amazing feature for me is the cost. You actually create an affordable home. Is there a secret to why it's more affordable than other types of construction?
Mainly because of the labor. You don't have a guy woodworker come in and having to build those houses and nail all those little pieces of wood together. Now, sure, the panel costs a little bit more than the wood, but it goes together so quickly that you end up with a savings of some sort. Sometimes, depending on what kind of options you want in the house, things like that, it's not a whole lot cheaper, but it's way never more.
and I don't want to nail you down to a cost per square foot, because obviously that's going to fluctuate a lot, but if we're building a 2,000 or a 2,500 square foot home, are we in a $250,000 range?
The house that we're trying to build right now to get the permit from the city of Dallas is a $240,000 house. It's right at 2,000 square feet.
Very impressive.
So that's $120 a square foot.
Which is very cost effective. I guess it would obviously depend on the lot where you are, but as construction goes, that's a very cost effective house.
Absolutely.
Well, we've got a couple of more things to talk about before we leave, but we have one more break to go to. We're going to hear a few more words from our sponsor. We'll be back in just a minute to finish up today with Chris Lynes.
The Gym, 801 South Greenville Avenue in Allen, Texas, offers 24/7 access for people who know life isn't just 8 to 5. Free weights, cardio equipment, nutrition bar, group boxing classes, amateur boxing, and personal training. It all starts with you making one good decision. Call 214-504-1400 and get to the gym on your schedule. The Gym, where fit happens.
Strong business has always been the clear economic indicator. Work Suites in Allen, Texas is just one of 18 locations in DFW and Houston that support your necessary transitions with full service and affordable workspaces for upgrading or downsizing your current workload. You need to be focused on growth. Trust the office experts and helpful staff at Work Suites to take care of everything else, from dedicated phone lines and internet to furnished executive and co-working spaces. The OBBM network has tripled our business in the short months we've been with Work Suites and encourages you to step out boldly, make the tough decisions, and get back to work your way. Your nation depends on it. The OBBM network acknowledges that this is a pivotal time in history, and it is clear the United States of America has been undermined by many of our elected officials for some time now. We want our local business audience to stand strong in the face of what we now understand, and to be empowered to grow our businesses on the local level beyond the limitations that have been imposed upon us. We believe it is in our national interest to inspire our communities through strong economic development, and additionally to hold our elected officials accountable for accurate representation of we the people. For that reason, we encourage you to go to WeStandForFreedom.com to learn about the National Write Your Congressman organization that has been the trusted communication tool for local communities for over 60 years. Learn how your representatives are voting. Understand the laws and regulations under consideration on the state and federal level before they are enacted at the county and city levels. Communicate directly with these officials and stand up for yourself, for by doing so, you will protect the communities you serve from tyrannical rule and unconstitutional reforms. The OBBM network is the premier voice for local business, and we take that responsibility seriously. The OBBM network has everything you need to grow and transition your business for success on popular syndicated podcast networks, Roku and other video channels, and the OBBM network app. We work for you, local business, and we've got your back.
And we're back talking with Chris Lynes. Chris, we've talked about a lot of the positive things that are connected with this house, but I've got some other questions on the negative side of it. And it's not really negative, but maybe some details. I'm excited. I want to try one of these homes. What's the process? How do we get started? And how long does it take to build a normal house? How long does it take from start to finish for this process?
Okay, let's address that, because we've talked about so many positives, and there's some others that we haven't mentioned that I would like to get into and say this very simply. The only negative about this technology is the fact that it's not well known here in North Texas. There really isn't any negative, nothing, no special trade-offs of one thing to another. It's just all positive compared to a regular stick-built house.
Very good. So from start to finish, you at Thermostar, you're acting as what we call the general contractor.
Correct.
Right? And then underneath you are the subcontractors that are actually doing the different disciplines that are required to build the house.
That's correct. And we have a key one, obviously, who knows how to do the panels. And this is a nationwide group that we've partnered with. We can build these houses anywhere in the country, which was pretty amazing to us that we would have a partner like that.
Financing, I would imagine financing, it's a traditional house, but there are some benefits. Fire maybe, fire protection. Do I get a break on my insurance? And And how easy is it to finance one of these homes?
Well, it's standard. You need to go get pre-qualified before we'll build a house. But there's several ways to do it. There's some help to be able to do that. But there's a thing called a one-time loan. And what it is basically is a loan that you go get that gives you the construction money and the final mortgage all in one shot.
Gotcha. Because you're not like one of these large industrial builders that's building an entire subdivision out and they're providing the lot and the house and everything else. You actually are building on an existing lot, right, that someone's trying to build.
We'd like to be, but we're not there yet.
Actually, I think you're in a great position where you are. So it's affordable. It goes up fairly quickly. It's building in just about any place you can think of. What am I missing here? Why aren't we doing more of these things?
Well, I tell you what, we've been to the city of Dallas. They're very interested in what we're doing for the tax base. Did you know right now in this country there's a shortage of 7.5 million affordable homes?
Gosh, I think that's huge. Just Dallas. We've got so many people coming into this place. We got so much need for housing. You know, one thing we didn't talk about, and unfortunately we're kind of running out of time, but you also do multifamily construction using this methodology.
We're working on a project right now over in East Dallas. It'll be 89 units that we hope to be able to finish here in the next year. But we're still working out the finances. We've got it all figured out. We just need to put the details together, get the contracts together.
Gosh, and I can just imagine these safety benefits that you've talked about, not just the cost involved, but the safety. How about sound? I would think this would be a great sound dampener as well. Is that right?
This particular project, this multifamily project I'm talking about, is right next to a major highway. And what makes this special is that when you're inside one of these houses, you won't hear that highway.
Amazing.
It is completely soundproof.
How about it? You know, one thing we haven't talked about, and I haven't even talked to you about it in other discussions, but is there a need for an attic in this house? Do we have attics anymore?
No, as a matter of fact, why do we have an attic?
To store my Christmas stuff, Chris.
I'm sorry. Other than that, you probably have a furnace and air conditioning unit.
There you go.
We don't use those. We use something called mini splits or ductless air conditioning, which means every airspace in the property has its own little heating and air conditioning unit.
Interesting.
Now think about that. You're in the middle of summer and your furnace goes out or your air conditioning goes out, which would happen to me a couple of years ago. We had a few rough days at 98-degree weather inside the house. If you'd had these mini splits, you just would have slept in another room that night and repaired the mini split, which takes 20 minutes.
Yet one more positive, and I'm going to have to cut you off because we're kind of running out of time. But I want our viewers to learn more about you. So how can somebody get in touch with you or learn more about Thermostar? Okay, well, number one is we've got a very comprehensive, information-filled website, www.therma-star.com. Therma is THERMA-star.com. And it has phone numbers and things in there you can contact us. But my phone number is 972-979-1701. And we love to talk about this. As I mentioned earlier, I'm 78 years old, and in my entire life, I've never been as excited or as interested as I am today. Well, Chris, I'm so glad you came by today to visit with us. This is an incredible, necessary industry that needs to happen, and I'm glad we're learning about a new thing that's making an impact on it. I want to thank everybody for joining us for today's episode on the OBBM Network. Look for us again for the next episode, and we'll see you then.
To be a guest or request sponsorship information, contact the Kortkamp Group at 972-824-8001 today. Production and programming information requests for the OBBM Network should be directed to Offbeat Business Media by calling 214-714-0495 or send your request to info@offbeatbusiness.com. Biz Pointz TV, podcast, and radio show are produced by Offbeat Business Media for the OBBM Network. Unauthorized use of logos, audio, video, or reproduction is strictly prohibited.